All right, we are back here on the Just End the Suffering podcast. We just heard ESPN's Jay Billis describe how the NCAA really had no choice but to cancel the tournament. We're going to talk to this guy anyway today if the tournament was happening, but it is a good kind of wrap on college basketball. I got Patrick Schmidt from FanSided here with us today on the line. Patrick, welcome back to the podcast. How are you?
I'm good. I'm missing sports, especially missing March Madness, but it's good to be with you.
Yeah, it is good to be talking to people again. And I will say, this thing just felt like it just escalated so quickly.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, not just in college basketball, but, really kind of in everything. But, yeah, to focus on college basketball, it was looking like, hey, maybe this is it's going to go on, but, maybe there's just not going to be fans in the stands, and it's just going to be the players and coaches and, their families, some recruits maybe, and then, essential stadium personnel or whatever. And, during that time, I'm trying to wrap my brain around how that's all going to look, how it's all going to sound. Is that going to, hurt the enthusiasm and spirit of March Madness, and the underdogs, they kind of get on a roll, the crowd gets into it, and the buzzer beaters and all the upsets and things of that nature. So, I'm kind of thinking about, how this is all going to play out, for a day or so in my head. And then, the conference tournaments, they all, one by one, they started canceling things, once things, really got kind of serious last Thursday or so. And then really everything started shutting down. We had the NBA shut down, the NHL, MLB, everything. So, from that point, it pretty much felt like an inevitability that, either the NCAA tournament is going to be postponed 3 or 4 weeks, and they'll try and fit it in late April and early May and whatnot, and try and at least do it. And then, kind of reality set in, and the whole thing was called off. It was canceled, and it was a significant buzzkill. I certainly understand why the NCAA did it. I think they made the right decision, of course. But from a fan standpoint, it's just disappointing. We won't get to see the games play out. All the fun underdog stories, all the upsets, and even for, some of these great teams like Dayton, it's going to be their first year as a number one seed. So it's tough. We don't get to celebrate these teams like we should have.
Yeah, we don't. But, I mean, I talked about it before in the podcast. I think this is, like, once the Gobert news broke, I mean, it became very clear that it was very recklessly sending these teams across the country or even doing them into, like, one location. All it takes is, like, one person, whether it's not even a player. Like, it could be, like, an official. It could be a fan. Just bringing into the building with them. And you could sending all the people who were exposed to this virus all over the place. It just made no sense.
Yeah, it really felt like, Rudy Gobert and then, Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, them, when that news broke, it felt like it, maybe like a half hour, an hour after the Gobert news broke, it was like, oh, wow, okay. And then it kind of like, set in like, across the country or for sports fans that, hey, now we didn't take this seriously. The NBA is a player. They're shutting down their league right away. They didn't even hesitate. Tom Hanks, everybody loves Tom Hanks. So we were like, okay, wow, this is, this is a lot more serious than we would have thought 28, 48 hours ago. So, yeah, life came at us fast.
Yeah, life does come at you fast. A couple of big things that fall out of this is, like, number one, the NCAA basically canceled all spring sports, not officially yet, but as of right now, it's not like they're giving ad eligibility to those seniors, which I think is the right thing to do. But do you think the same will happen for, like, let's say college basketball or hockey players, these winter sports who basically play the regular season but did not get to actually complete it?
Yeah, it's great what the NCAA did. It was, they definitely could use some good PR. So, I love that the NCAA is giving the extra year of eligibility or not penalizing or tolling the year for, the baseball, softball players and any other spring sports. But I don't think that's going to happen for, the college basketball players. If there's some great seniors who aren't going to go to the NBA draft or aren't going to play professionally, this is their last rodeo. I think this is indeed their last rodeo. I mean, the season was 95% done. I mean, for some of these schools, they were already done. They weren't going to it in the NIT or NCAA tournament. So I don't think they're going to get their reprieve, their second chance. But I do want to commend the NCAA for not penalizing the spring sports student athletes.
Yeah, because you're right. I mean, like, this is impacting a relatively small portion of college basketball seniors because, like I said, a lot of schools either wrap their season or not going to a postseason tournament. But, like, if you're like a college baseball player or a lacrosse player or like a tennis player, like, you got maybe 3 or 4 weeks of competition in there, and then your season was done, which I think is just not right, not fair way to end their college careers.
Yeah, it's like we all want like the the fairy tale ending or the great storybook ending, and no, we're not going to get that. But at least for the spring sports, like we're just hitting pause on this season, and hopefully, for them, the pro sports and the draft, it's a little bit different, especially for softball. But for basketball players, like Cassius Winston, senior Michigan State guard, like he wouldn't come back to school. Even if he did get a second senior season, like those guys, they're going to be gone anyways. But for the most part, NCAA handled themselves really well.
Yeah, they did, and there was talk a little bit. I mean, there were talk. I mean, we've heard interviews from people on the selection committee and involved in the decision making that one of the alternatives they considered to try and save the tournament was like a 16 team edition that would have basically been all on one site. And I know, like, obviously they made the right call canceling, but like, if this was the route they had gone and they had said, okay, we're bringing the 16 best teams to one place or playing over one weekend, what do you think that would have actually looked like?
I mean, I think it would have looked pretty awesome. I mean, in short, it would have been nice just to kind of, not necessarily like fast forward through the first round, because that's kind of like my 2 or 3 favorite days of the sports calendar, that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But yeah, considering the time constraints and the logistics and the travel restrictions and all the factors involved, yeah, picking the top 16 seeds, I don't know how they would do it. Obviously, it would be Kansas and Baylor, Gonzaga and Dayton, and Michigan States and the Marylands, the Florida States, Dukes, Kentuckys of the world. So it would have been nice. It would have been kind of like an accelerated tournament and higher stakes. It would have been interesting to see it all play out, because it all would have been unprecedented. So we all would have been witnessing this event for the first time, and I'm sure there'd be little kinks and whatnot, but it would be sports. It would be basketball on our TVs, and we'd have a modified bracket at least. So it would have been cool. I definitely was hopeful for a postponed tournament, but again, like I said, I understand why we didn't get that. But yeah, if we had a 16-team tournament, I probably would still be picking Kansas to win it all, just because, I think they've played the best basketball, over the last, pretty much the last 6 to 8 weeks or so of the season. And it's been a wild, crazy year. And this, Mike, with Michigan State beginning the year, preseason #1, and then that just pretty much set off 6 or 7 different teams that held that #1 spot this year. So a lot of parity this year, but Kansas, over the last 6 to 8 weeks or so, they've been a juggernaut, and I don't know if anybody would have been able to beat them. Of course, in the tournament style, anything can happen, but whether it was a 68-team format or a 16-team format, I'm probably thinking Kansas.
Yeah, Kansas would have been my gut too, based on like who the top 16 were. I think they probably had the best path, but at the end, I don't think it matters. I think the one thing I would have liked to have seen is like, I do wish the NCAA had actually just put the bracket out. I know there are logistical issues about like who would have won some of these conference tournaments, but like, I think it would have been nice for like schools like Rutgers who haven't gone to the tournament since like 1991 to have the official recognition that like, you would have made it. Here's where you would have gone. I think they missed the boat here by not doing that.
Yeah, and I wrote about that yesterday. It's unfortunate. It's like we already don't have the tournament, but and it's like a lot of the smaller school conference tournaments, like we already knew who their automatic bid was going to be. Like, it's like, granted, I know some of the, we still have like 14, 15, 20 or so of the conference tournaments going on, and the NCAA said it wouldn't have been authentic, but like we already know it wouldn't have been authentic, because there'd be a giant asterisk on it, because the tournaments didn't finish, and there was no real tournament anyways. But I think it would have been great to celebrate these teams, give them Sunday, give them an hour out of the day where they could all gather as a team virtually, on Skype or whatever, while they're practicing their social distancing, and have CBS, just read off, hey, Dayton, they're the #1 seed in the West or the South region or whatever, and they could celebrate being the #1 seed for the first time in program history. Rutgers, like you mentioned, haven't been in the tournament in forever. Teams like Penn State and Illinois, who haven't been there in a long time, and the small schools, the medium-sized schools, the big schools, they all could have used a day or at least a few hours of celebration. And I think I wrote it in my article the other day on FanSided where I was like, you know, the NCAA tournament ends, where there's only one team where they end their season with a win. We get it; they're the national champions. But considering there was no tournament, I thought having a selection Sunday, releasing the bracket, you at least give away for 68 teams to feel good about the end of their season because, hey, this is a raw deal. Like, it stinks. There's no other way around it. But at least give us Selection Sunday, give us the bracket, and let those 68 teams feel pretty good about what they did this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. And since we're kind of wrapping up and putting a bow on the college basketball season, I mean, like, who do you think would be like the main contenders for these Player of the Year awards? I'm sure that's going to give out, but they won't obviously have the whole dog and pony show of the award show.
Yeah, I think it's Obi Toppin, the Dayton forward. I mean, he's been a stud all year. There's a number of great players. Luka Garza looked like he was going to be the front runner for a while. The Iowa big man, Miles Powell from Seton Hall. Those are pretty much my top three. And then there was maybe a bubble or whatever of maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 players that were in the mix. Malachi Flynn, Peyton Pritchard, the two studs from Kansas. So a lot of good players, but I think Obi Toppin was the most special, the most sensational for what he did for Dayton, best year in program history. They were going to be a number 1 seed. Maybe they get all the way to the Final Four. I don't know if they would have won it all, but Obi Toppin, what he's done, some of the highlight reel dunks and plays he's had this year, I think he's going to win the Wooden and all the other Player of the Year awards, and deservedly so.
Yeah, that does sound right. I do think Obi Toppin would have been that. He's already going to the draft, but we do have some actual college basketball news to report, which is actually nice to discuss something besides the tournament being canceled. And we have a big news item that Rick Pitino, who's been out of college basketball for 3 years and is getting fired by Louisville in 2017. He's back. He's taking over for Tim Cluse Iona. How shocked were you to see Pitino ended up there?
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy. We lose March Madness, but we gain Rick Pitino. I did not envision that headline, this March. So, Rick Pitino, obviously as a coach, as far as winning games, X's and O's, his ability to coach and teach and recruit, guy's a Hall of Famer. Obviously, when you talk about Rick Pitino, you have to talk about why he was fired at Louisville and some of the other, stains or black guys or red flags, however you want to call them, on his resume. The guy knows how to win. The guy knows how to get good players, but sometimes the way he goes about that has skirted or outright broken the law. So, or at least the NCAA law. But man, the guy could coach. It's good for Iona. You get a name brand head coach, a guy that wanted to get back into college football. He'd been coaching overseas, had success overseas. I mean, it's not like he forgot how to draw up plays and when to call timeouts and when to do this and that. So the guy could coach. It should be a significant shot in the arm for Iona. Elevates their program a little bit in the eyes, locally in New York, but around the whole East Coast and college basketball. I mean, they were the talk of the weekend pretty much, despite all this stuff going on elsewhere in the world and in college basketball. So definitely going to open some eyes, but I think the NCAA might be keeping a closer eye on what Slick Rick is going to be doing in Iona. But if I'm a fan of the program, I'm excited to see what he can do, and maybe he'll get the team back in the NCAA tournament in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, they had a tough opening there to fill with Tim Cluse, who was probably the best coach in the history of that conference. He didn't coach this year with a health issue, but like getting Rick Pitino with the renovated facilities and a program that's actually been pretty consistently a winner in that league for about a decade now. I will admit I'm a bit biased. I am a alum of the program. I think that the heights they could reach now, I think it's fascinating to see how far he can bring them.
Yeah, and we know he's had success in that area before, and I think I saw one of the quotes where he was saying Providence was his favorite job way back in the day, and he loves that whole area, the metropolitan area and whatnot, and he seems happy. He seems kind of at peace, like this is going to be his last chance, his last big job. It's not going to be like, yeah, he's at Iona for a year or two. They win 25 games this year and next year, and then he's looking to go to some Big Ten or SEC school or ACC school, something like that. I think he realizes that's not going to happen. So, yeah, again, it's an interesting hire. When I saw his name in connection with the job, I was like, wow, no chance. And then also kind of why would they consider Pitino? But I understand why they would consider Pitino. So I'm kind of interested to see how it's all going to play out over the next year or two when we get back to talking about real life sports and the sports taking place on the courts and on the fields and all that good stuff.
Yeah, the thing I would guess would be the biggest impact is that there are going to be more high-profile recruits that are going to New Rochelle.
Mm-hmm.
That he's going to get get more games at say Madison Square Garden. I mean, he's already talked to Calipari about scheduling Kentucky in the Jimmy V Classic, which would be interesting in itself. You say he won't play Louisville, but I think there'll be a lot of sellouts in New Rochelle. I think there's going to be a much higher profile in that program.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's what Pitino's going to have to do. He's going to say, hey, look at all these guys that I recruited and all these guys that I coached before that I sent to the NBA, and he's not going to get the 5-star recruits that are going to Kentucky and Duke, but maybe he gets some diamonds in the rough who come to Iona for a year or so and translate that experience and maybe get into the NBA somehow. So he's definitely a great salesman, and it's going to be interesting watching the recruiting rankings for Iona over the next couple of years to see what type of player, what level recruits, and success, who he's able to get. Because if he gets one solid recruit, who knows when that next one might fall. There might be 2 or 3 or 4 guys that all team up and they want to play together. Maybe they're all New York local type guys that want to stay close to home. So you never know if that could happen, but we kind of saw it start to take place at Memphis before James Wiseman was suspended. But you get one local guy to commit to the program, and you get 3 or 4 guys that want to follow and be a part of something special. So you never know, but that's what Iona is hoping Rick Pitino will do.
Yeah, never thought I'd see the day. I remember last year, I think when they were in the tournament beating North Carolina, I was writing for FanSided at the time, and you told me, I said, you're right about Iona now. This will be the only time we'll ever talk about them on this website, and that has certainly changed.
Yeah, it's funny how fast the speed of life comes at you fast. You never know, with college sports, whether it's football, college basketball, you never really know what's going on. We think we have a good idea, but we never really know. So, hey, thanks for pulling that one back from the archives and getting a good laugh out of me for that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, it was a good one. Patrick, thanks for all the time. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, do you want people to know how to find on social media and a little bit of this mythical March Madness we're doing over at FanSided?
Yeah, so, it stinks they don't have, the real March Madness. So we're trying to make some lemonade out of these lemons we got. And, we have, a final bracket that Joe Lenardi, the expert bracketologist, put together. So we're just kind of acting as if that is our official NCAA bracket. And, we put out some fun stuff about, you wrote some of the best games or matchups that, we were looking forward to see that, we're deprived of seeing, and, some fun stuff about mid-majors and some Cinderella stories that, we won't get to see this year. So we're just trying to make the best of a bad situation and trying to fill the sports void for college basketball fans who normally would be getting ready to fill out their brackets and maybe make plans for this weekend to get out of work or find a way to watch TV at work without your bosses knowing. So trying to have a little fun here with our mythical March Madness here. And once we get done with that, we'll turn the page on this season once and for all. And we're just going to get an early head start on looking ahead to the 2020-21 season. So, the sports stop, but I guess the content and the reading material never does.
Yeah, it definitely does not. People want to find on Twitter, it's at Patrick A. Schmidt, right?
Yep.
All right, there you have it. Patrick, thanks for all the time. I really appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on to talk about some college basketball.